Hi, and welcome back to Yoga with Tim. One of the most common questions I get is, how do you adapt the practice for wrists? So just that question in general has me interested in why the wrists are hurting. And more commonly than not, this is from people getting too excited about a vinyasa yoga practice too soon. Now, a vinyasa yoga practice is not a beginner yoga practice, and I'm going to link this video below that explains more about that, what you should be looking for as a beginner in yoga practice. But all too commonly, we get onto the hands and we do too much on the hands, and then the wrists just burn out. There's nothing you can do about it. What we want to do is start to strengthen the muscles that are going to help to support us so they're not sinking into our wrists. So what is that? What are the best exercises for my wrist? The best exercises for your wrist are getting your core strong and your rotator cuff strong, your shoulders and your back muscles. So we're going to do a little bit to start to warm up the muscles in the hands, to start to mobilize the wrist, but then we're going to get into really what's important is strengthening your shoulders and your core. So the first thing that we're going to do is just take your hands at your side, squeeze your fingers in, make a fist, and then spread your hands out. So just do that maybe like 10 to 12 times. Because of all the time we spend on the computers, texting, driving, these muscles, they just get weird. They get stiff, they get stuck, they get rigid. So we're just fully clenching the hand and then fully expanding. So remember that the health of a muscle is the ability to contract all the way and to release all the way. So it's not just about stretching, it's not just about strengthening, it's a combination of both. Two more. Okay, cool. Then what we're going to do is start to flex the wrist, but this important exercise that I want to show you, I'm going to take it over to the wall, hope you can still see for this one, is we're just going to start to activate and press the hands into the wall and then activate our back muscles. So as you go to reach your hands into the wall, make as big of a handprint as you can on the wall. And you might feel if your wrist is super tight that the heel of the hand doesn't want to release into the wall in this position. That's okay. Let the wrist start to flex and stretch. And just practice making a big handprint on the wall. Then turn your hands around so that the fingers point down and the thumbs point out to the side. Now, if this feels too much strain on your wrist, you can just turn the hands so that the thumbs point like kind of up to the ceiling instead and work your way towards the fingers eventually pointing down. None of these should feel sharp, painful that way. It might feel like a deep stretch, but we don't want to feel like it's sharp or painful in the wrist. If your wrist is injured, you're just going to need a little time for it to heal. So you just have to take time if you have an injured wrist. Once it feels like you can start to add these exercises without causing more damage, then you can do that. Okay, then from here, turn your hands around and bring the hands about waist height. Okay, so here's the thing is about when beginners go to practice a down dog or a plank or whatever, the thing I most commonly notice is that people just sink into their shoulders and their wrists. And when you do that, when you're not activating your rotator cuff and your core, your wrist will burn out. It doesn't matter if you have like good alignment going through your chaturanga or something. Well, I mean, really it's bad alignment if you're not engaging your core and your shoulders, but it will burn out by doing it. So yoga, just doing yoga is not therapeutic. Doing it right is therapeutic. So I have my hands at the wall at about waist height. I have my hands slightly turned out to accommodate tension in the shoulder. And then what we want to do is practice activating our arms. So as you press into the wall, I want you to pretend like you're trying to push the wall away from you, from your outer shoulders, and then activate your core. So engage your belly and feel the muscles in the side of your ribs start to engage. And we'll hold that for about 10 seconds. Then slowly release. So when you're doing your down dog, it should be the same press, even if you can't stretch back as far. Now we're going to do a couple of exercises for the core, but we'll also integrate a little wrist flexion into this exercise for the core. So most important beginner core exercise that I always have people do is the dead bug, where you lay on your back and you move one leg and then the other. It's kind of like this position from a neutral pelvis, alternating arm and leg. But a way that we can start to introduce some wrist flexion and make it actually kind of a little more challenging on the core by having the arms overhead is by putting your hands at the wall like so. And so you bring your elbows in to a 90-degree angle, and now you have to turn on your external rotator because the elbows are just going to splay out. So this is going to help to engage the external rotators, add some flexion for the wrist. Now, the important thing is we want to find a neutral pelvis. So as you inhale, arch your lower back. And then as you exhale, flatten your lower back down into the floor. Then inhale, arch your lower back. And exhale, flatten your lower back down into the floor. Then come right into your neutral pelvis position. Rotate the elbows in towards each other. Squeeze the armpits in. And then bring one leg at a time into tabletop position. Feel the back of the skull and the buttocks reach away from each other. Now, keeping your abs engaged, your side ribs hugged in, slowly lower one knee away from your chest. Bring it back up and lower the other knee away from your chest. And bring it back up. A couple more times. Keep the elbows hugged in, keep the armpits hugged in. And keep the side ribs hugged, spine long, low abs in. Then set your feet back down. So you can work up to doing that for about a minute. The next exercise that you want to start to incorporate is a bridge lift to start to integrate your hips, your legs, and your core. So whenever you're doing a chaturanga or a plank, the work of your legs, your glutes, and your hips is super important. So have your hands at your side, and this is also going to help to expand your chest and open your shoulders, because normally when we start yoga, the shoulders are pretty tight. So as you exhale, you're going to start to engage your low abs, grip the backs of the legs and the glutes, and then start to lift your hips up. Now the upper arm bones should press down. So we'll start with the fingers pointed up like robot arms. Descend your upper arm bone, descend your shoulder head, and feel the neck long. As you engage and squeeze the buttocks towards the backs of the knees, draw the skin from your lower belly, from your pubic bone towards your navel in, and then squeeze in with the outer hips to go up. Slowly lower yourself down. Keep those upper arm bones descending as you exhale, lift up. So this is helping to strengthen the muscles in the backs of your shoulders. This is helping to strengthen the whole back body, the posterior chain. And lower slowly. And you can work up to doing 12 of these and doing sets of 3. That would be best. If you did 12, took a pause, took a break, and then went back into it. You can even integrate the core work with it, making it a set. Okay, moving right along, we're going to practice bearing weight into the hands in a plank position in a safe way. So what I want you to do is first come up onto your fingertips, like way up on your fingernails. And then staying up on the fingernails, feel from the very center of your hand, we'll just call this the arch of the hand, you're going to draw up into your inner shoulder. And this is called Hasta Bandha. So draw up from the center of the hand into the inner shoulder. Lean into your right knee without leaning over to the side. Stretch your left leg back behind you. And just feel how much your abs have to engage, your back muscles have to engage, so that you're not sinking into your poor little fingers. And then set that knee down. Now put the hands flat for a second. And stretch the other leg back. You can feel like I can be doing no work in my shoulders and my abs and do this. And then like whenever I see people like doing these, I'm just like, why are you just wasting your body's time? We want to be able to feel the core turning on. So come up onto the fingernails again, fingertips. Feel your abs having to engage. The back muscles engage. And then lean into your left knee, stretch your right leg back, but feel your middle turn on. Feel the front body resisting gravity. And then lower that knee down. Now set the hands down, but I want you to keep the fingertip feeling the lift from the center of the hand into the shoulders. Pretend like you're on the fingertips as you stretch your left leg back. Change sides. Lean into the left knee. Pretend like you're on the fingertips. Draw up through the center. Stretch the other leg back. Now keep lifting through your front body. Step both legs back into a plank position. Then press into the knuckles, the fingertips, and lift through the center of the hand. Now feel your whole front body. the shins, the thighs, the belly, the chest, all trying to resist the floor. Resist the push of gravity downward. Keep lifting up to the center of your hand. Then set one knee down and then the other. Now also, the crease of your wrist should be parallel to the front of your mat when you're doing this. So you might, depending on how your wrist is set up, your hand might turn out a little bit. That's okay. From here, stretch back into a child's pose so we can start to mobilize this part of the serratus anterior, the pec, shoulder gets really tight. And a great way to start to mobilize this is by stretching in child's pose, but an active child's pose. So instead of just sinking into the shoulders, my hands are pressed at the wall. I'm reaching into the hands. And then you can see that I'm not focused on how far back I could sit. I'm focused on stretching the arms in an active range of motion. And then from here, come up onto your hands and your knees. A great thing to practice is abduction with the arm so that it turns on the middle deltoid. So just holding your arms like this, and then you can make little circles with your hands to do active range of motion. And you can turn your thumbs down, do little internal circles. And we activate these same muscles when we hold warrior two. So if you're doing a standing pose practice, that's already helping with your shoulders too. Great pose to hold for about a minute or so. Then the last thing that I would show you is downward facing dog with the heels elevated and the hands elevated. Now this is because when we come to our practice initially, because the upper back is often so tight and the chest muscles are often so tight and closed, it's not really appropriate to do a down dog with the hands on the floor, because all you're doing when you're loading that, you're teaching your body to strengthen the poor posture. So what I have beginners do is the wall stretch and work on creating a 90-degree angle eventually between the thighs and the spine. Or initially, the 90-degree angle is impossible, so I have people hold their hands up higher and work on creating a line from their outer hip to their wrists. So this is a beginner's down dog. The knees can be bent a little bit, especially if the hamstrings are tight. Once that one's going really well and you can see you have the line from your hip to your shoulder, if you can't see, you could have someone take a picture of you or look in a mirror. The next variation would be to have hands elevated either on the seat of a chair. That's probably even better. I would go next to the seat of a chair and try to work that same angle. Then, more advanced than that would be to have the hands elevated on the blocks and the heels elevated. And then you're working to make an inverted V, so it's like you want to try to lift your hips up and then create the line from your wrist to your outer hip again. Now, while you're doing this, you keep the same lifted sensation from the center of your hand into your shoulders, and the upper two ribs broaden. As soon as you can feel that you're sinking into your wrist, that's a sign that you should just come down and practice child's pose instead. So as you start to implement a vinyasa practice, you're like, my wrists are getting healthier, I'm starting to get stronger. When you feel the sinking start to occur when you're holding in a plank or a down dog, you just stop doing the vinyasa. So if it's like a half an hour class and you have to do 10 vinyasas, maybe you just do 3 initially. Then you work your way up to 5. So just remember, it's kind of like you're training when you're practicing yoga, like somebody would train to run a marathon. No one would just go out and run 15 miles on their first training day. It would be horrible for their body. They work their way up. So think of your yoga practice like that. When you see these classes that call themselves beginner classes and they're doing vinyasa after vinyasa, don't watch that video. All right. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you found it informative. If you did, hit the thumbs up, the like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any of my future videos. And leave a comment below. Let me know if there's any other tutorials that you'd like to see. Share this with a friend if you know a friend that practices yoga and has some wrist issues. And I'll see you next time on the channel. Lastly, make sure to visit timsonxyoga.com, where you can find videos that put together the whole practice for you. Subscribe to the Conscious Movement community there. Have a great day.